Yeah. You gotta work. You gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work.
Let the conversation begin. This is Let's Talk with your host, Carl Lee.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Lee, and this is Let's Talk. Let's Talk is a deep dive into sports, culture, and society and how they all merge together. Today, I'm super excited about the topic today because Hollis Lewis and I are here together. So the good thing is it's dialogue that's going to be just straight back and forth. Yeah. So you won't get lost maybe in multiple opinions or any of that. So, Hollis, I'm going to start out where I kind of want to start is when it comes to winning and losing. Everybody believes in the idea of winning matters. Mm-hmm. Okay, like it is, I gotta win. Mm-hmm. And I don't know any true athlete who does not have that built into them, and that's what they go after is the win.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, losing, what's the difference in the lesson in winning and losing? Which is more valuable? Is winning more valuable than the lesson that you can get from losing? I'm curious of what your take is, and people who are listening to this, think about it. Think through those thoughts. Winning and losing. Where do you get your best lessons from?
Well, I mean, from personal experience, I've probably had more football losses than wins.
Right?
So from a personal standpoint, I think I've obviously garnered more lessons from the losses than the wins. But I think they can be equally yoked in that you can learn a lot from either. It really depends on how you go about it. Like, because if you got a win at all cost mentality, you're going to skirt the rules, you're going to cheat, you're going to do whatever it takes to win. And I think that's a bad way to win. And I don't know if you're going to learn anything from that. At the same time, if you're taking losses way too hard, you're not really trying to get better, you're not learning anything from the losses, you're just you're perpetually losing, then I think, I don't know what you're going to gain from that. So really it matters about how leadership sort of takes you through that journey and that ride.
Okay. I like your choices there.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. High school football.
Yeah.
How the team who has taken in a host of transfers,
yeah,
and are winning.
Mm-hmm.
And the team like Capital, South Charleston, St. Albans, that are losing.
Yeah.
Whose lesson? What kids are better? What kids are going to be better for this year? Who's going to come out of this? Whose child is going to come out of this better off? The kids who transferred and playing on a team that's beating a team 70, 80 to nothing, mm-hmm, compared to the team who is playing hard and losing by that same score.
That's kind of hard to assess. That's hard to assess because I think that what we've seen with the whole transfer thing, if you take, Hurricane, they ain't really, I mean, they beat who they supposed to beat by those margins. So they beat the Capital South Charlestons. Yeah, that's what they were supposed to do that. But when they faced the tougher teams, it's been tight games ever since. So I think that, again, it depends on how leadership of those different organizations are taking those kids through that journey. Because, you could take Hurricane and, they had players move different positions and everything like that. And some players have blossomed in those new spots that they weren't expecting to be at now. So it depends on how leadership manages that, because you could, you can be on the losing team, but if if leadership isn't, trying to squeeze out those lessons from those losses, then what are those kids learning?
Okay, all right. So let's go back. Let's go back some years. I'm at state. You're at state. V's at state. All the guys are at state.
Yeah.
We're all there.
Yeah.
Without having the funding, when we all first got there, I got to meet all the players and all that kind of stuff. We didn't have the funding, didn't have the facilities, none of those kind of things.
And we need to touch on that too, so don't forget that point. We need to touch on that later.
Okay. So no scholarships, no full scholarships at all, okay? And when we got to those full scholarships, I can take all the credit for that. Okay, I can take all the credit for making that happen.
Yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't bump me up as a coach. That doesn't make me like a great coach. What that was the resources that I had to get to salvage a program that the school wasn't interested in funding that particular sport.
Yeah.
So I've yet to find a guy, a former player, that I think has lost or didn't gain something from those years. Not because specifically about me, but the coaching scenario and the way that I pushed you, I think was beneficial to everybody. Yeah. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that 100%. I agree with that, but I also would say that a lot of those lessons they didn't come on the field alone.
No,
right?
No.
So they were on the field, off the field, type of lessons. So I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Do you think that coaches today, and again, college and high school coaching is totally different.
Yeah. But although I would say it's starting to become similar now.
Yes,
it's starting to become a lot more similar now.
I would, and
particularly
maybe
with social
not,
media.
And I'm going to say maybe not in a good way.
No, definitely not in a good way.
Okay,
not in a good way.
Definitely not in a good way. I think that coaches on the high school level do not understand that there are lessons that you are accountable for of teaching.
Yeah.
It is not about you winning, although you buy into the idea of winning. You're going to sell your program on winning. You're going to sell your brand as an individual as winning. Making it to recruiting high school players to my program. If I've got the best players and I can't win, now you can judge me, right?
That's fair. That's fair.
Okay. But if I don't have the resources, if I don't have the players, how do we blame? How can anybody want to blame any of the coaches that are at those particular schools who have been ripped from the talented players and are forced to play ninth graders and 10th graders against some of the best seniors and juniors out there? How do you blame the coach?
Well, I think what they're looking at is like, well, what did you do to keep those players that you had? What are you doing to, and I don't want to say like, quote unquote, recruit those players that are coming in? So a lot of the community, they're not necessarily looking at it from a resource standpoint, because I think that's the perfect comparison. If you take West Virginia State, what it was, West Virginia State College, let's say that West Virginia State College in the mid 90s to early 2000s, and what like Capitol High's experiencing right now, where you just have a lack of resources, a lack of funding. almost a lack of care, as you mentioned, for those programs, it becomes expediently difficult to actually maintain players, no matter what your spill is. It becomes difficult to recruit players, no matter what your spill is, because they're looking to this program, they're looking over here, looking over there, and seeing, well, that's what they got. They're doing it this way. They have this, and versus what you don't have. So I think from a community standpoint, they're not necessarily looking at all those things. They're purely looking at what are you doing to maintain players, regardless of what you got. What are you doing to keep players? What are you doing to recruit players? And why ain't you winning? Because even if we not, let's say, going playoffs this year or championship, you should be winning 4 or 5, 6 games at least based on your coaching ability. And kind of and throwing away everything else. That's kind of important when you talk about coaching.
Well, the pieces that you're throwing out.
Yeah, the pieces that you're throwing out is,
pieces
like
that
I
you're
said,
throwing
when
out.
you talk about and I'm just using Capital, I'm sure other programs may be experiencing something similar, but I know like a Capital High, it is difficult when you don't even have control of your budget, when you don't have your full gate, when you don't have your full concessions, when you're playing at a place that has 5 other teams playing there. I seen them. I was driving past last week, and this is a high school program, and they're practicing 50 yards, and the other 50 yards is taken up by the college. You see,
right?
How do you what?
What do you expect?
What do you expect? It's difficult. It just becomes difficult when you don't have the Jimmys and Joes and those coaching jobs. And I think it highlights, particularly when you don't have the Jimmys and Joes, it highlights just your lack of everything else is going on. Because a lot can be, like you said, overcome if you can find some talent together.
Yes, right.
You know what I mean?
And experienced talent.
Experience, yeah, I like that.
Experienced talent because.
Yeah. And not to say they may have some talent there, but
yes,
I think that's the key point.
But I think that what matters is the experience what I think that has caused what the transfer has caused is now you're playing with 9th and 10th graders I think South Charleston might have 2 or 3 seniors, and so you're talking about kids who are just now learning skill sets from middle school to high school, and now trying to learn the plays and the defenses and all of these kinds of things, and they're brand new to the system, and they're all of a sudden they're looking at a score 80-something to nothing.
Yeah.
How do I get better? What's the motive for me to say I want to stay in football?
And that's the next point too. The next point is the mental drain that happens.
Absolutely.
Right? Because again, that's why I'm proponent. And I'm saying, like, I understand what you're saying as far as lessons, what we gather from winning versus losing. But that's why I say you have to win at some juncture. You have to win something, right?
Yeah, there's got to be.
You got to get some wins going.
And South Charleston, South Charleston a couple weeks ago when I was at the game and they were driving down to score, because they hadn't scored at that point, and they fumbled the ball, man, it was all the air on the entire team just dropped.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's like, what I mean by that is, like, you have to get some wins how you can take them. Again, you may not win the game.
But you got to figure out what to win.
You got to get some wins. That means, like, hey, man, my JVs, they're getting better.
Yeah.
You know, we scored 13 points in these first couple games. Now we scoring 13 a game since. So you got to, as a coach, you got to find some positives, and you got to go head first on those positives to make sure your team is getting something out of this. Because if you don't, it becomes a mental drain. And taking it back to when we was at State, I mean, you know, we were practicing, we were getting up in the morning, we were working hard as everybody else, but we're lifting weights in an old shooting range at the ROTC that you finagled out at ROTC with old weights. Yeah. Right? It becomes like, man, why? This just ain't it. And as a young person, it's hard to fight through that.
And being young, what you want to see something that's bright and shiny.
You want to see something that's bright and shiny.
You know, because everybody likes new uniforms. Yeah. But new uniforms is not enough when you don't have weights. Yeah. New uniforms is not enough when you ain't won a game and you ain't got funding that you can't get that guy.
When your bus is breaking down every plane. You know what I'm saying?
All of that. All of that. Yeah. And to the parents that are sitting back there trying to make the decision of where my kid's going to play, or it's the coach, I'm sorry, it ain't the coach.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. We can't let the coaches just totally off the hook.
No.
You got your part.
So I was guilty. Okay, yeah. I'll be guilty of not being able to manage a program. I'll take that. I'm not gonna. I don't know a whole lot of other coaches who've been in the business enough and been in it for a while. I don't know if you take some of the best players and put them on the same team. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you mess that up. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you give me a quarterback, and you give me a receiver, a halfway decent back, and just a decent enough line, I got a chance.
That's a fact.
I got a chance.
Yeah,
because I can hit you big.
Yeah.
You give me some defense. You give me some guys up front. Give me a couple guys up front. So you let me recruit a couple of kids up front on my defense. Give me some speed in the back. Mm-hmm. We're going to probably have a pretty good defense.
Yeah.
And and the problem with that reality is that's easy for these teams to recruit these specific types of players.
Mm. You mean high school level?
High
college?
school level.
Okay, you're talking about the ones that's like picking and posting?
Yeah, the one that's picking and pulling these kids to and providing something. And I don't know. Here's my problem with the recruiting piece and the player and the parent campus. And you get dressed for your first practice, the first live practice. Mm-hmm. You're gonna see some men.
100%.
You're gonna see some men.
Yeah.
And for the first time, you are going to have to legitimately compete. Mm-hmm. How do you do that? How do you do? Are you okay now? Because you left the place, even though you were starting, went to another place, and you're on there with a whole bunch of other good players, and you're winning. So you're beating the guy. You're beating teams 80-something to nothing. And I get it. There's 2 or 3, 4 games in the season that you may play that's competitive. Come on. That's your entire that's basically your entire high school.
But I would liken it, and again, this is an extreme example, right? And I would liken it to like a dream team scenario, right? While you may not the games themselves at times may not be competitive, but we don't know what's going on in practice. And I'm sure that some of those practices of some of these teams we're talking about have been very competitive, right? Because I think that the idea that you're just going to go from one team to the next, that's the reality for some kids. They go from one team to the next, start. They don't have to worry about anything. But a lot of kids, I think this happening when what they saw is that once I jump from this team to that team, I still got work to do to even get on the field. It's not just it's not a gimme. You know what I mean?
Well, let me just say this: if you jump to another team and you ain't playing,
yeah,
and the goal is that you're going to play next year, okay? I don't understand that because I could have that at home. I could have had that in my home school. I could have had that at South Charles. I could have had that at Cap. I could have had that, St. Albans,
But I think that's where the winning comes in.
Well, yes. Yeah. And see, now we're chasing the wins.
Yeah.
What happens if you get recruited by a school that's not winning? A college that's not winning? I ain't going. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you go. If they offering $1, you're going.
Yeah, it's true.
Because you ain't parents ain't paying that. If they can help it, they're not paying that.
Yeah.
And see, and I just think I hate to say it. I think that the whole structure of this, of what we think talented players are, what the expectations for them as they move upward.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. There was a few supposedly Division I players that after their senior year are not playing ball.
Yeah.
No offers. Now, I'm sorry. That's not a coach's fault.
Again, some people may think different.
Oh, they may.
Well, you're not doing the Twitter thing. You're not getting them out there. You're not connecting with college coaches. Some people may think different.
Do you truly believe? Do you truly believe that Twitter is the answer?
Oh no, I believe it's a marketing tool.
It's a marketing tool. Yeah, it's a marketing tool to get you out there.
Yeah.
In most cases, now we won one game. We had scouts at practice. Okay, at practice. Why are they coming? Why would they come to South Charleston? That's what they do.
Yeah.
They're scouts at games.
Trying to find a diamond in the rough.
Yes. Again, I know this for a fact. And it's hard to challenge it because I know this as a fact. I wasn't winning. Marshall was not winning when I was there. Mm-hmm. It did not stop pro scouts to come in.
Yeah.
Sometimes you knew, sometimes you didn't know. Mm-hmm. Same thing with high school. Some scouts, they coming. I guarantee you, if I'm playing against Wayne Harris, bro, I know somebody's in there.
Somebody's watching.
Somebody's there. Okay, I guarantee you. So you know what I'm thinking? Man, I'm showing out. And if you're not thinking that,
I think that's the thing. You ain't thinking. I think
whose fault then is that?
I think, well, as far as that is concerned, I think we could talk coaches, we could talk parents, we could just talk individual kid, particularly if they're a junior, senior, right? Kids who have aspirations to play college, D1, whatever, and they're not on the greatest of teams. I don't think that thought process is in their mind.
Okay. Well, let's do this. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back. We'll be right back with Let's Talk with Carl Lee.
Contact Carl Lee on email. Let's talk carllee@gmail.com or text 409-422-7539.
You're listening to Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Sponsorship opportunities are available. Email letstalk@promessage.com or call 304-342-8131. For more information, visit WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. Now, back to the conversation.
All right, this is Carl Lee, and this is Let's Talk, and my co-host Hollis Lewis. We're here together today, just me and him. Going to pick up from where we left off. Hollis, I think when you start thinking about the idea of what you want,
and you saying you're talking about the individual player.
The individual player.
All right, gotcha.
You have to be aware, and you have to be conscious of the things that you want. It's kind of like when you're in school. If you want to be an engineer, you know there's certain classes that you have to take.
Yeah.
So that you have the foundation of that to where now when you go get that job, you have that foundation. If you're an athlete and you want to play collegiate ball, or you want to play ball on Sunday, you're accountable. Ain't nobody else accountable for you.
Yeah.
You're accountable for your own individual success. And your success does not belong to me. Your success belongs to you.
And see, and I think that's the piece that to me, the statement that you just made right there, it separates good high school players from Division I football players. It separates Division I football players from NFL guys, because I don't believe a lot of people walk around with that mentality and that perspective. And I don't. And again, I'm not saying it could be the parents' fault, coaches, whoever. But for example, you know, when I saw, I didn't coach Derek Pitts, but I was at the middle school. We would come watch the game. I was coaching in Dunbar at the time. And I just saw in him, I was just like, that kid, I mean, I didn't know NFL. I didn't know that. But I was like, that's a Division I football player. I mean, they had him playing at safety, linebacker, the rush in, punter, running back, receiver. And you could just see his mentality was totally different from any other player on that team.
And what's key to that?
He just had a different focus.
Okay, so that's the difference. And you know, we were talking earlier today on the show. Me and Dave were talking about you know, the kid at Chicago.
Yeah, the Tyson kid. From Martinsburg, West Virginia.
From Martinsburg.
Played at Shepherd.
played in his first pro game.
Yeah.
Here's a kid undrafted,
Yep.
gets his opportunity
And balls.
and just and balls out.
Yeah. Division II Heisman Trophy winner.
Yes.
Harlan Hill Award winner.
Yes. So you cannot say that you don't have a chance. He's undrafted.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Shepherd. Nothing's wrong with Shepherd.
Yeah, Shepherd's a great.
Yeah,
it's the best football program in the state.
Yes, it is.
We could say. Yeah, I would say. I put that on record.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he comes out of nowhere. Nobody drafts him. Chicago sees something,
Yeah.
and they draft him. And now he's in the lineup. He's the guy.
Yeah. The first quarterback that's born and bred in West Virginia in the modern era, in the modern Super Bowl era, to start in the game.
So to your point of knowing that, that people who have that drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can we then say why if you're talking about D1, if you're talking about Sunday, and you don't have that drive, are you going to get there?
You know what? I think what happens, though, it's hard to assess whether you, and I'm just talking about from the individual kid. Maybe from an outsider it may be different. But I think from the individual kid, because what happens, I've seen it in two scenarios, right? So you've seen a kid who works really hard, right? Mm-hmm. Who works really hard, and he plays pretty good on Fridays, right? You see the kid who's got a decent work ethic, but he has the acumen, the metrics that fit. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. But I think what happens is that in those two cases, unless you have the mentality, and when I say the mentality, the perspective, I believe it can be manufactured. I don't believe in that you're necessarily born with it, because when we talk about the Tyson kid who's Chicago Bears quarterback, he had the same story as you. He had that dad. They kind of planned this out. This was the plan. This was kind of put in him piece by piece. And he developed that perspective, that drive, that intensity, that fire to like, I'm going to go and I'm going to stop at nothing. It doesn't matter up, down, wins, loss, undrafted, drafted. None of that matters. I'm going here. So unless you have that, I think, just from my perspective, from what I've seen in various players that I've coached, unless you have that intensity plus that perspective, no matter what your metric or acumen is, it's going to be hard for you to jump to that next level unless you have that.
Well, and let's go back to the metrics, because the metrics are critical to the league.
To the league, yeah.
They're wrong a whole host of times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve Smith. Yeah.
Barry Sanders. Okay, Barry Sanders shows up in the league. He's too short.
Yeah.
But he's exceptional.
Yeah, I don't have an adjective for that guy.
Tom Brady, seventh round pick.
Yeah.
7th round pick.
Yeah.
But me and him go in the same round.
Yeah.
And he is now what? The GOAT?
The GOAT at the QB position for sure.
So again, the draft itself, I don't necessarily have a whole lot of respect for it, because it can be wrong.
Yeah.
Okay? But if you are the kid who wants something, there's two things that I think that you need to figure out. Are you putting in the work to get what you want? Mm-hmm. And if you don't have the metrics, then you better be a dog.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the biggest dog that you can find. You got to be a Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
You got to be a Tom Brady.
Yeah, I think that's where the intensity, and I think to that point, that's self-awareness too. I think a lot of people just lack that as well. You have to be aware of your surround. I was telling you a story about me and Coop. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I couldn't do what offense came in that was tailor-made for him.
Right.
And I'm not that athlete, right? So I had to figure out my space in that. So you got to be, not only do you have to have those things that you mentioned, you got to be self-aware. So you got to look at yourself and say, but I need to work on speed. I need to work on strength. I need to work on these things that I can be better in.
And I've said this 1,000 times, I'm sure, on the show, and I'll say it again. I get to Minnesota, and I got a guy playing at the University of Miami, a 3rd-round pick.
And for the people, that's when Miami was Miami.
That's when Miami was the dog. I mean, they were winning year after year after year.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at him, And I'm assessing him, and I'm like, okay, he's got this, he's got that, he's got this, he's got that. But you know what? I'll outwork him.
Yeah.
I didn't say I was going to be better than him. I said I'll outwork him. Mm-hmm. And when I got cut, I knew I had not put in that when I think that was year 3. I got cut for 3 days. When I came back, I had gotten comfortable. I was just happy,
Happy to be back.
Happy to be playing and da-da-da-da-da. So my first thought then was like, okay, I got to get him now. He's got to go now. I want him to separate. And that's when Pete Carroll comes in. We bring bump and run.
So you got cut in year 3? You were 3 years in the league?
Yes,
you got cut?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Because I was out. I was getting ready to go to Pittsburgh. I was getting ready to go to Pittsburgh.
Okay. See, I thought that was your first year.
No.
So you were already 3 years in.
Look, I was going to
cut.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I was going to get cut. I was likely to get cut my first year. Mm-hmm. But a dude named Melvin Brown tore his knee up. Yeah. Never came back. And I made it because he was a better corner. I was a safety trying to be a corner. He was a legit corner. So that was a blessing in its own right. Mm-hmm. Because he was out the whole year, never came back. So I got that year. Then they moved me back to safety. My second year, I didn't. That was not where I needed to be again.
Yeah.
So when Pete Carroll comes in and that defensive staff comes in, they move me back to corner. We're going bump and run and all this. And now I'm like thinking, okay, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And I'm making this point only because that's the self-awareness. Yeah. Because it'll sound arrogant, it'll feel cocky, but if you're not able to assess yourself and say, okay, look, I know for a fact I can outwork him. Mm-hmm. If I outwork him, I'll be better than him. Mm-hmm. Folks see that as cocky, and it's why, I say this. Nobody can. I don't care what you say about me. You can't take what I built. Yeah. You can't. There's nothing you can say can bother me because I ain't never really dreamed about being a coach. I dreamed about being a football player. After that, I wasn't even thinking about being anything else. I just wanted to be that football player. I got that. Yeah. And I got it in a way that nobody can take it from me. Mm-hmm. These young kids have the potential to put that kind of mindset if they know.
They got to know.
They got to know.
You got to be in them.
You got to. Bro, I bet you your goal, your fight to be a judge, an attorney, and all that, bro, you putting in work. Yeah. You putting in work, and you I'm not going to be satisfied of just being okay.
Yeah. And sometimes it's funny you said that, because sometimes it's like you put in all this work and you really don't you don't even assess it. It's just kind of the journey that you're going. And I'll say this to your point about the cockiness and arrogance and whatever like that. I think humbleness is overrated. I think sometimes coaches, people, they tell us be humble, right? And I think that's overrated. I think sometimes we're
gonna agree on something.
Yeah, you got to look at you. And again, it's that self-awareness and knows, okay, I'm all of this. I'm not that, right? And you can sit there and focus on what you ain't. But it's to me, it's always better to say, I'm this. And this is what I can double down on. And this is what I need to work on. So I think that whole humbleness thing, again, not to say you have to be boisterous or you have to be outwardly cocky, but I think that humbleness thing, I think to some people, they internalize that incorrectly. Well, and it becomes that self-loathing and just, not really properly assessing where you're at.
And that's good for the athlete. Yeah. But for the parent, they're never good enough. If you try to make the case that your kid's good enough right now, you're cheating him or her. You're cheating him.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. But I think what has to happen to me, okay, as far as the parent is concerned, you have to assess your child, and you have to give an honest assessment of where they're at. You know what I'm saying? For example, if we're talking about, you mentioned a lot, if they don't fit the metric at whatever sport position that they're playing, you have to then tell yourself, okay, is there another sport they can play? Is there another position that they may need to play? Or what needs to happen for them to excel in this sport?
And it don't matter where you go.
Yeah.
It don't matter what team you play for, no matter how many championships you win, you have to fit the metrics. And if you don't fit the metrics, everybody's going to know you.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no question. And again, we've thrown these names out. Here are the guys who have truly been the metrics. Jerry West.
Yeah.
Robert Alexander.
Yeah.
Kurt Warner from Pineville.
Yeah.
They fit it. They weren't too short. Randy Moss. Weren't too short.
Bobby Howard.
Bobby Howard
that's the perfect case to me.
Yes.
Because he doesn't get the star-studded credit that everybody else gets him in their class.
Right.
But if you look at his work and you look at the metric, just the metric alone, he was able to go to Notre Dame. He fit the metric.
Right.
And he excelled from there.
Right. And by not fitting the metrics, you as the parent, you have to then speak to your child and say, look, if you really, 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 truly want this goal, you need to do this, and this, and that.
You got to be prepared to go after it.
Yeah, you got to go after it.
Yeah.
You got to be hungry. You got to be in the gym when nobody else is in the gym.
Yeah.
If you're at practice on time and in the weight room on time and you're doing conditioning and you're running out front, you're only halfway there.
Yeah.
Because that ain't enough.
It's just
not enough.
I mean, and particularly now when everybody's kind of working out, guys are generally in shape. Everybody knows the latest and greatest techniques. It's not like back in the day where you can kind of hide the ball a little bit if you was doing a little this, a little that. Now everybody know what everybody else is doing. So if particularly if you're an athlete now, you got to be about that work.
If you had to say something to a parent that has a talented kid today, what would you say?
I would say number one, make sure, and this is just, make sure they got
off the top of
make sure they have other interests beside, put them in something else to balance that out. Like Peyton Manning's dad, make him do plays and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But far as just, focusing on the game, you as a parent, I think you really have to assess your kid. You can't get caught up in the fandom of your particular kid, right? Because I can't get caught up in my kid makes great plays, tackles, touchdowns, throws. That's great, right? But I have to be able to assess you're not, and again, I have to be able to assess versus similarly situated kids of his age group and then kids at the next level. So if we're a high school kid, I have to look at those college kids and those offenses, seeing what are the throws that those quarterbacks are making? What are the catches what are the routes that those running? And I have to constantly be on the quest and figure out how I can communicate it to you that we need to constantly step up every day. We need to get better. We need to get better. We need to get better. We need to get better without drilling with you, without being necessarily negative. But I have to look at those things to give you a proper assessment to see where you're going.
And I've told you this before and probably said it here again because I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
My dad made it very clear to me after every game the plays that I did wrong. And again, I hated it.
Yeah.
But man, did that matter to me? Because now I'm playing trying not to make any mistake.
And see that, and your dad knew you.
Yes.
Because that may not work for everybody.
It may not.
Yeah.
It may not.
Yeah.
But for me, again, because we were fortunate enough to dream the same dream.
Yeah.
I wanted to go. He didn't have to tell me that he would support me going on Sunday, to playing on Sunday. I was saying it at 7. He rode with me all the way through.
Yeah.
And all he knew was what he didn't know about how the draft worked. He didn't know about any of that kind of stuff. He hadn't gone through it. But what he knew was bad plays, missed tackles, somebody beating you for a touchdown, all that kind of stuff won't work. It won't work.
And you're 7 years old and you communicate this to your dad?
Yes.
See, that's a beautiful, and even to that point, I mean, that's like a beauty in itself in that he didn't try to hit you with the old plan B.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Mom tried to push
Pops ain't hit you with the plan B.
No. It was plan A was to get to Sunday.
Yeah.
We unfortunately we got to go to youth football. Unfortunately we got to go to youth football, old junior high school, college, and then we get there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we got to deal with that.
Yeah.
But the goal is to get there, and there was no reason why we're not getting there.
And see, I think to me that's why it makes it different for you to talk about these things, to take losses, and because to you it's always again, since you're 7 years old, it's bigger stakes. It was a bigger dream at place. So for you, everything else was almost consequential. And I think for some people, it's hard for them to relate to you in that manner because they're now.
I agree.
High school's everything for them. But junior high, everything.
I agree.
What I mean?
I agree. I 100%.
That's as far as they're going.
I agree 100%. But the ones that I'm trying to get, and the parents that I'm trying to get to, the ones that I'm trying to like knock this door down, are the ones whose kids do quietly want to play college ball.
Yeah.
They quietly want to be D1. They quietly would love to play on Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, but you can't politely get there.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, you can't, if you can't say it, you can't do it.
Yeah.
If it's what you want, then where's the work?
All right, so I would shoot the same question, not necessarily talking to the parents, but just talking to the individual players who have this dream. And we're talking about the guys who want to play on Sunday. They want to play Power 5 Division I football. What's your message to them, like far as what they need to do to get themselves primed to get there?
You first must dedicate every moment that you have free to either be thinking about it or doing something about it. Because if you're not, because when you sneak over there and have a drink,
yeah,
and you're hanging out with your boys, they ain't going.
They ain't going.
They not going. My guys will tell you, the guys that I hung out with, loved them. Bro, I ain't, and bro, you know, when we first came out, bro, that was the big thing in the community.
Yeah.
Bro, I ain't touching that. Mom's sniffing me. I come home, I've been around somebody smoking. Mom's sniffing me.
Yeah.
And I know I'm getting killed if I pick up anything.
She had them police nose.
Yes,
too.
sir.
They
Yes,
smell
sir.
everything.
So I'm getting away from that.
Yeah.
See, I'm staying out of all the stuff that supposedly is going to hinder me from playing, getting to that dream. My mom made it very clear, these things won't help you. And we're not doing these things.
Yeah.
Dad's already committed to.
Yeah.
He buy me an old $10 weight bench, you know, and I'm out there in the backyard. He out there with me. He's just sitting out there hanging out with his motorcycle, and I'm out there lifting, bench pressing. Don't have a clue what I'm doing.
Just doing it.
Just doing it.
Like you said, spending effort.
Just
so
spending the time.
Let me take the question deeper, and this may cause you to kind of imagine, because this wasn't your plight per se, but what about the kid who doesn't necessarily have the supportive parents at home, or maybe don't have parents at home, but still has his dream? How does that kid how does he get over his circumstances in order to go to that next level?
He's got to leave the people who's not going anywhere alone.
So that means loneliness. That means solitude.
I can help me get there, and I can't take him with me.
And that's a cold reality.
That's a cold reality. But you know what I can do? I can come back to him.
Yeah.
But I can't take him with me.
And I think, to me, a lot, and just to kind of take the conversation a little bit in a different direction, that's the hard part sometimes, because when you come from those broken homes, those situations, your friends become your family. And a lot of times, if you aspire to do different things, if you aspire to have high aspiration, it gets difficult to work on what you need to work on and hang out here too with your quote unquote family. I know for me, I think that was part of, and now that I'm talking and thinking about, I think that was part of my dad's plan for me. He understood that I had different aspirations, and he understood where I was going. He understood I was going to get to the point that I'm at now. So he had to send me somewhere away where but just by the nature of me being up there, I wasn't over there.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think he kind of maybe understood that as well. So that's actually a good point.
And I don't like I said, I my friends are still my friends.
Yeah.
You know, and I've made this case. Harold Pennell lived on the other end of Greenway with me. Best football player in South Charleston.
Yeah.
Okay? One of the best basketball players in South Charleston. He quit football, basketball.
Yeah.
That's tough in basketball. I told him when I came home from Sunday, I said, bro, you could have played Sunday. If I could play, you could play. Bro, he was better than me in high school. The difference between me and him, he got tricked into pushing basketball.
Yeah.
If he could have done both, right, he'd have been great in football. Sport, come on.
I don't like that.
You focusing on basketball and you 5'10".
Yeah. And again,
if you 5'10", what do you have to be?
Jump out the gym.
and
a crazy shot.
You got to fit. If you don't fit
Super
that
athletic.
metrics, you better be great in every other aspect.
And again, to that point, there are metrics for every size and domain,
Yes,
right?
yes.
We could talk about like a Barry Sanders or a Steve Smith. There's a metric for that, but that metric is rare. But I also say to this point, and you know, I know Harold, and I didn't know his perspective then, but I'll say like, to me, that's like what we talk about, having awareness and a perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think individually, like if you can sort of develop that, then it's going to be hard for somebody to trick you out your spot, you know?
Yeah, and I think when you start to pick your sport, you know, I think Harold particularly liked basketball more than he liked football.
Yeah.
So if you dangle that out in front of him, he's gonna, you know, he's gonna go to that. But I'm using this as an example because I'm saying.
And you can use the T.O. and Randy Moss. I think they probably like basketball better.
Yeah.
But when they looked around and said, "Hey, I'm average in basketball, and I'm just
Everything in football.
Everything in football."
Yeah. I mean, and I think the hardest part is for you to be able to decide, you know, if you're going to pick.
Yeah.
Which I'm making the case you don't have to pick. Mm-hmm. If because here's the thing, if I'm good enough in football and I want to play basketball, football's going to be okay with me playing basketball.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, sometimes in basketball, you know, sports that cross over, sometimes, you know, when the coach, and I'm saying this out loud to the coaches, when you're trying to get a kid to play one sport, you're being selfish for yourself.
Yeah, that's I do not like.
Yeah, you're being selfish on your own.
Yeah, I don't like that because kids need to play all sports.
They need to play as many sports as they want to play.
But I'll say though, even within all that and everything we said, but you still, as a parent and as a kid, you have to have perspective.
And
you got to have a proper assessment.
Right. If you want something, first of all, the question needs to be asked: what is sports for you? What do you want for sports?
100%.
What do you want to get out of sports? Because what dad wants, what mom wants, might not be
what you want.
What you want.
That's a fact.
So the biggest question or the biggest conversation is, all right, Johnny, we heard Hollis and Carl talking about this. So I'm following up and asking you, what do you want from sports?
Yeah.
And it's likely they don't have an answer.
Yeah.
It's likely that they don't have an answer.
They might have an answer,
They
but
might.
you don't want to hear that answer. I know with my daughter, right? My daughter is she's almost 5'10". She's built like a rock, and she just plays for fun. And it kills me because I want a serious athlete. I think she could be a professional athlete in something if she just put her mind to it. But Dad, I like hanging with my friends. I just want to play for fun. I'm not playing college. Fine. I'm not invested. Now, we ain't doing all the training stuff. You just play during the season, have a good time, and we go from there.
Right.
And it hurts, but you got to
accept that.
You got to accept that.
You got to accept that because you can't force that.
You can't force it.
You know, and the other thing is, You can't blame because some kids just play because somebody else is playing and they
play
just
with
having
their
fun.
friends,
They
you
just
know what I'm
it's a
saying?
chance for them to hang out with their buddies. You can't blame the coach on that. You can't blame. There's no blame to be thrown around if the kid doesn't have. See, what's hard is I don't understand how you play a sport without a goal in it.
See, that's hard for you. And again, I think it's harder for your generation and it's hard for my generation and I would say like a Coach Mason's generation because for you per se, you fighting to get to Sunday. A lot of us was fighting to get out the projects,
right? Fighting
to get out of our conditions. So sports was the conduit to do that. Whether we just got to a dorm room at State where we can eat, have 3 squares and it's clean, it's a cool environment. We out of the mess, right? So for me, fighting for that thing, I don't understand. To your point, I don't understand how you're playing this game. Particularly football. It's hard, it's grueling, it's tough, it's nasty as football is. You're not playing for something as difficult for me to reconcile. But I think with kids now, it's a little bit more comfortable. Not say everybody got it perfect, right? But it's generally a little bit more comfortable. There's generally more service. There's generally more sympathy and more things services that people can draw from. So now kids, like you said, a lot of them just play for fun or
I'm not knocking that.
But as a coach coaching that, it's difficult.
That's difficult. And again, parent, if you know your son or daughter is just playing for fun, there is no place to blame the coach because that's his career.
Yeah.
That's his life.
And that's tough. And I've heard a lot of coaches complaining about that.
Yes. If I'm coaching and it's my life. It is where I butter my bread from.
Legacy, life,
yes,
all that.
And you come into my team and you talk about you just having fun.
You just having fun. Man, that's hard.
I'm not interested in nothing in this game other than just right now. I may not even play next year.
Because I know, like, even just using my own experience, I think a lot of the guys I played with at GW, they're playing to play high school football. They're not playing thinking, well, I'm going to go to college. I think out of my senior class, I was the only one to play collegiate football. And I think out of all the classes that I played with, it was maybe 2 or 3 of us that actually had a full collegiate career. Some of them had little stints.
What did Stevie do? Stevie Edwards.
Where did he go to college?
Yeah, where did he go?
Cincinnati.
Because that's right.
He played D-line in Cincinnati. Yeah. So it's difficult. So I know it's just a player. It was difficult for me to be on the same to have something in common where you're not playing for what I'm playing for. So as a coach, and I've coached kids like that, it's almost impossible. So you got to try to figure out something else as a coach. You got to take your mind somewhere else, and you got to make it fun. You got to bring in all the little glitz and glamour. And I think that's where the resources and those things come into play, trying to bolster up your program.
All the coaches that are wrestler at South Charleston, as a parent, put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
And your child, and maybe 4 or 5 other kids that are on that team, and them, and ask yourself, would you step into that job?
Would you step into that job?
Yeah. And us that look like me and you, got skin like me and you, you got a couple of black coaches that I think care about where they are.
Yeah.
And you judging because they couldn't hold on to players that left. And now you talking about they need to give up their job.
Yeah.
No.
And see, I think it's past judgment. It's a tearing down. It's tearing down. Again, you can maybe not like coaching philosophies. Maybe they don't run the right offense, the right defense. But I think that when you take men, as you just mentioned, who've been working in this community for 20 of those brothers, because I understand how difficult it is just to be a presence in the community. Again, and that's not to say maybe they aren't the greatest coaches. Maybe you don't agree with their philosophy. That's fine. But when we start like just tearing those brothers to pieces and besmirching their reputations and kind of doing those things, that's when I think we've gone too far.
And at best, they're making $4,000 for all year round,
And
for all
that's
the work
the
that
part.
they're doing.
Yeah.
So they're not making money.
None.
They are out there doing that for your child.
Yeah, and in most cases, doing the best they can.
The best they can.
Yeah.
And
with what they got.
with what they got,
Yeah.
and what they've been left with.
Yeah.
And I want to give a shout out to all of those coaches who are on that back end of the results of kids transferring out and having 1 win, 2 win, 3 wins, or just beating each other.
Yeah.
That are down at the bottom. My hat's off to you guys in spite of what the parents are saying, in spite of what some of the kids might say. You are doing something for young men that I think it could very well be their greatest lessons that are being taught to them in the moment.
Yeah.
Outside of the education piece,
Yeah.
their life, the lessons that they're learning through these losses. I'm not promoting wanting them to lose.
Yeah.
I'm saying this sport and the fact that they come out there every day. These kids are coming out every day working hard, trying to get better, trying to win a game, excited about a potential touchdown even if they lose the game. My hat's off to those kids.
Yeah, man.
And my hat's off to those coaches.
And it is extremely difficult to stay upbeat, to kind of stay on task.
Absolutely.
To keep that intensity flowing when you're, 2-8, 1-9, 7-3. When you have no chance of going to the playoffs, you're not beating. You're not
You
getting
already
a big
know.
upset.
And you got a
already
game
know.
coming up.
You got a game coming up. So, definitely hats off to them. But I think you still, as a coach, you got to find a way to, you got to find a way to make this fun. You got to dig into your team and you got to find something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that those coaches are trying to do that. Now, whether that results in wins, maybe not.
Leave them alone. Leave them alone. Pat them on the back. Thank them. Because they're not making your kid worse.
Yeah.
They're trying to make your kid better.
Yeah, it's really a thankless job.
It is a thankless job.
Is,
and until you understand it, you don't get it. And I'm saying that from the coach's perspective and the player perspective on both sides of it. Leave your kid alone. Let him play. Let him do what he's going to do. And let life take care of itself. Because I promise you, they'll be better for what they're getting, what's happening to them now. They'll be better for it than anything else you can give them.
Facts.
All right? Anything else?
No, man, that's it, man. Like I said, it's a good conversation today, and I just hope, like I said, as we've been doing the last several weeks, I hope parents can, particularly parents, and even some players who may be listening. I think when we talk about, we had the AD of Marshall, we had trainers, we had athletic directors, we've had, sports compliance guys, and we have messages like this. So I hope that people can start to, pull out some of these jewels that we're dropping and, learn and apply,
Yeah, we've already been through it.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to help. We're just trying to make it clear. And because everybody that you're hearing from, everybody that's on Facebook, all those kind of places, all that ain't true.
Yeah.
And a lot of those folks have not been through the system.
And that's the part that I want to highlight too. I'm glad you said that. We've been through it. We've been through it in a variety in different capacities, in different ways, and we're bringing other people who are in it and gone through it from all angles.
I've been through it from youth football to pro. You've been through it from youth football to college. And what it did for you in the business world, in the working field, that ain't shabby.
Yeah.
That ain't shabby. So, again, to your point, I don't think that we're wrong on any of the points that we're making.
Yeah.
Are we always right? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I'm making the case in these last few weeks, we brought you facts whether you want them or not.
Yeah, and and the thing is, I've coached from youth to college.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I've got a dual experience within sort of how that works on both ends. So it's like, you can pay attention or not. I can only put it out there.
Yeah, that's all we got.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Carl Lee and Hollis Lewis, and this is Carl Lee. Let's talk. We'll be back with you again soon. All right, we're out.
The opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of WVRC Media, its management, employees, or sponsors. Contact Carl Lee on email, letstalkcarllee@gmail.com, or text 409-422-7539.